welcome on behalf of Ornaments of Grace and Virtue OGAV. I welcome everyone to the 2022 OGAV Mother-Daughter event in celebration of the International Women's Day. This is our fourth event, Mother-Daughter event in celebration of the International Women's Day. And indeed, this is our second virtual program for that event. There are people joining us from different countries. Some have joined us from the United States, from Canada, from UK, from Nigeria, and other places. We're delighted to have you join us. Thank you so much. This year, the International Women's Day theme is Break the Bias. Again, it continues the objective of the International Women's Day of celebrating and also pushing for diversity, gender diversity, and equality and recognition of the diversity, women's equality and inclusion, and celebrating and valuing every woman and indeed everybody for whoever they are and whatever they do and wherever they are, whatever they stand for. OGAV is joining in this initiative with our program, the Mother-Daughter event. And our theme again, in aligning with the International Women's Day theme, is #Break the Bias. So I welcome everyone. I welcome our distinguished guests, distinguished speakers to this event today. And in line again with the theme of Break the Bias, we are also having a campaign for ending menstrual poverty. Menstrual poverty is an issue that affects women in both the developed countries as well as developing countries. And OGAV is passionate about it. So we would have a presentation of our campaign, and then following that will be an address by our president, Mrs. Busola Kolade. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Next, we'll be calling on the President, Mrs. Kolode, to give her address.
Good morning and welcome everyone to OGAV virtual event. Mother-daughter event is an annual spring event where mothers and daughters have an opportunity to have a meaningful date while celebrating International Women's Day together. OGAV felt the need for mother-daughter event in the community where mothers can be empowered through sharing their experiences with other mothers alongside their daughters in a small group setting. This essence is to give an opportunity for learning and empowerment. Last year's event was our first virtual spring event due to lockdown. It was a different experience, a global attendance from across the world. This year, we are accelerating through the change and adapting to make the best of our situation. We are better adapted and making room to live with COVID as part of life. Looking forward to in-person event next year. We have all become better by actualizing that the world is a global village. We are closer than we think. We have people from all over the world this morning, from Nigeria, Europe, the Caribbean, and North America. Thank you all for joining us. Our theme this year is diversity and leadership from the International Women's Day celebration. It would be very naive of us to connive at the driving issue behind the theme this year. It is obvious that the demand for a change in diversity, equity, and inclusion in every aspect of society is very tangible and cannot be ignored. OGAV chooses to challenge the systemic deprivation of girls' worth and value that limits the opportunity given to girls to be educated, knowledgeable, empowered to make the right decisions for themselves because of gender inequality. We are making a difference by supporting, promoting, and advancing girls' education academically, social skills, and health wellness. OGAV started the year with exciting news of being awarded a Canadian charitable status. It was long-awaited news, but it is worth the wait, and we are grateful to God and to you for your support, your passion to make a difference by partnering with us and especially trusting us with your finances. Even when we don't have the opportunity for accountability, you still trusted us, and we are very grateful. Blooming in Adversity program has continued to run as a weekly virtual meeting to support the mental wellness of adolescent girls in our community in these unprecedented times by our team of undergraduate volunteer members. And we thank you everyone for supporting that initiative. We set out to impact 1,000 girls, but the actual outcome was 1,500. With support of local corporate sponsors in Lagos, Nigeria. Vale, please, can we have the clip? Thank you. Okay. You always give what it takes to make a difference in your community. Thank you very much. We are really, really grateful. That was at Agege low-income community of Lagos. It was beyond saying it was well accepted, but it was much needed. We had the coverage of the media there to support us. So thank you very much. Our campaign this year is Ending Menstrual Poverty. It's an offshoot of last year's campaign. This is a campaign that is dear to our heart as women. It's a WHO initiative that OGA felt the need for intervention in Agege again. Given the care pack last year with personal items and reusable menstrual pad, actually brought it home clearly that we need to concentrate more on helping the guys to go out of the stigma of menstruation. And so this year we are concentrating on helping to equip them with reusable menstrual pad and empowerment, giving them the necessary training and education that is needed. So we're looking up to everyone to please support our campaign. 100% of every gift, big or small, goes directly towards ending menstrual poverty that changes life. Make history and create a better future by giving what you can, please. Every one of us has the opportunity to give just a little more to ensure that people and causes that matters, most will always have the support they need. Thank you, everyone. Using your gift for the benefit of the community, it does make a difference. And we are very, very appreciative of it. Before I leave, I would also say the big thank you to our workforce, OGAV International team. I want to acknowledge their contribution and introduce them to you at the same time. So we have the PowerPoint to show the Board of Trustees and the volunteer team that works tirelessly every week, both social media and educating, mentoring the girls in the community. Thank you very much. We are grateful.
So much for that introduction, Barbara. That was wonderful. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's really, truly an honor to be here to share with you my thoughts on diversity and leadership in honor of International Women's Day. But before I get started, I don't know how many of you have been following the confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson in the United States. But I found out this morning that when she told her high school guidance counselor she wanted to go to Harvard, she was told not to set her sights too high. Of course, we now know that she graduated from Harvard Law School, magna cum laude, and she's about to become a Supreme Court justice. But how many of us can see ourselves in that story? I myself had this experience at York in undergrad when I went to a career counselor and I asked, how can I achieve my dream of going to graduate school? And she laughed. I'm not even kidding. She literally laughed and said, and I quote, "That is not going to happen." And look at me now. You know, I have a PhD in one of the top psychology programs in the world. So how does that happen? I grew up in Brampton, Ontario, Canada. Shout out to Brampton. But for those of us who grew up in Brampton, I think it's no surprise that anti-Black racism, misogynoir, which is sexism against Black women, were a big part of my experience. And it's absolutely not fair that we live in a world where we are asked to overcome so much as women. Experiencing racism and sexism is literally a trauma, and the research shows that trauma has an effect on our bodies at a cellular level. It expresses itself in our genetic code, in our physical ailments, in our mental health. And in my teens and 20s, I didn't cope with it very well. And even though I was studying all of this stuff, you know, in my research, I was also living it as a person, as a Black woman in society. And I started to hit rock bottom a few years ago. I was really so scattered that someone actually told me, Abby, you're just like a leaf blowing in the wind. And she was right. Everything going on around me had the power to dictate how I felt and how I acted. And the thing is, a leaf just blows whichever way the wind takes it, but a tree is solidly planted. So I had to learn how to become a tree. It is my hope that by the end of this presentation, you will either have the tools to become grounded in who you are, or you will feel like you already are grounded and be empowered to help the next woman. So being a leader is an identity, and it requires a solid sense of self, because if you, like me, were just a leaf blowing in the wind, you might have had your path directed by someone with false, limiting beliefs about you instead of you choosing your own path. So who are you really, and who gets to define you? Our identities are more than just a collection of traits. It's the stories that we tell ourselves. It's a sustained personal narrative about who we are. And these stories are important because they dictate how we act and what we do. We have a tendency to create boxes for ourselves and for others, and then we become rigid about who we are. And that rigidity limits us from fulfilling our true potential, because when you're rigid about who you are, it doesn't really leave you room to grow. And so, for example, if I tell myself that I can't do something, then I'm less likely to even try. But what if someone else tells me that I can't do something, like the guidance counselor at York? When we hear the same messages repeatedly, we start to believe them. What if Judge Jackson had listened to her high school counselor? So unfortunately, many of us have experienced being put into boxes in a way that shape our life trajectories. And one of the ways that this plays out is in the gender and race pay gap. There's a well-documented pay gap in the US and Canada, and I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but women on average earn 81 cents for every dollar that men make on average. The pay gap matters because it means that women, and especially women of color who make even less than white women, have less access to economic power than men. There are a lot of factors that go into the pay gap, but according to research, the two biggest are these. The first is called occupational segregation, which is a complicated term that really just describes how women and men tend to end up in different jobs, and the jobs with more women tend to be lower paying than the jobs that have more men. A lot of factors go into this, but imagine, for example, being told as a 6-year-old girl, girls just aren't very good at math. I've watched teachers say this to their classroom. As a psychologist, I've had the opportunity to watch actual live classrooms. And a lot of high paying jobs right now, like data scientists, require a solid math background. So how many girls have been discouraged from doing something that they really might have enjoyed because of somebody else's stereotypes? A second major factor contributing to the pay gap is the lack of women in leadership roles. There are stereotypes about women not having the ability to be a good leader, or maybe people think we're too emotional to be a good leader. And these stereotypes are just one reason that as you go up the ranks in a company, as this figure shows here, you see fewer and fewer women. So as I think about International Women's Day, it's impossible for me to separate my identity as a woman from my identity as a Black woman. In this blog post on my website, which is at the bottom of the slide there, I talked about how stereotypes about Black girls specifically led to me being suspended from school. And like I said at the beginning, I was told that I would never go to graduate school. As women, we have to learn how to put down the burdens that were placed on us by society. So that's why the title of this talk was Unbecoming. You have to unbecome those things that were placed on us to become who we were truly, fully meant to be. And I see the chat is kind of going off right now. I can't read that, but hopefully I'll be able to address it at the end. So feel free to keep writing in the chat. And if someone wants to interrupt me to read what's going on in the chat, please do. So I love this quote from Toni Morrison, and I believe that it applies not just to racism, but also to sexism and other forms of oppression. She says, the very serious function of racism is a distraction, and I would add by extension, sexism and other oppressions. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. And I think in a lot of ways, racism and sexism can keep us blowing in the wind. But these are not the only distractions. It's important to recognize that we tend to overly focus on the things that we can't control while ignoring the places where we actually have a lot of agency. So feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to, but I'll just run through this real quick. I can't control other people's racism, other people's boundaries, other people's feelings or motives or values. I can't control what other people think, what other people believe, other people's actions, other people's how other people react, what other people say. I can't control other people's time. And a lot of us will get angry over certain things that we can't control. Like I can't control the traffic or the weather or the past. And so, why let that affect me in the way that I do? But what I can control is my words, my thoughts, the media that I consume, my boundaries, the decisions that I make, how I respond to my emotions, my actions, who I spend time with, what I spend time on, how I treat my body, my values, the effort that I put in. I control my integrity. I control my views and my opinions. So how did I become a tree? What I'm about to share, I learned through my own psychological research as well as through therapy. And I know that there is still some stigma around seeing a therapist, but it's really nothing more than getting additional perspective on your life from someone who hopefully has the knowledge, the skills, and the experience to really see you, to really meet you where you are, and then guide you where you want to go. It was actually my therapist who told me that I was like a leaf blowing in the wind, and her words helped me to become a tree. So the first thing that I did was I focused on the things that were within my control, healing from the trauma of sexism and racism, my eating habits, exercising, and all the things that I talked about on the previous slide were within my control. And I was able to rewire my brain and how my body responded to trauma through repetition so that I wasn't just reacting automatically to everything around me. The second thing that I did was I dreamed big. A few years ago, I hit the lowest point in my life, and Abby 3 years ago would not have imagined that my life could be the way that it is right now. And sometimes it feels like there's no hope. And as someone who has been there, your life is so much bigger than this moment. And I hope that that reaches somebody today. I gave myself permission to dream of a life that didn't even seem possible at the time that I was dreaming it. And I'm happy to talk about it more in the breakout room or in the Q&A. But essentially, I started to reflect on the life that I wanted to live, and I would write stuff down. I wrote out, I would describe the kind of woman I wanted to be. And once I knew what that was, I worked toward becoming that woman, and I promise you it is possible. The third thing was I became the queen of my emotional state. I control my emotions now, they don't control me. And I understand them now, and I allow myself to fully feel them. And I love that they are a part of me, but they don't handle the reins anymore. Fourth, I learned how to be compassionate to myself and others. The process of becoming is messy and ugly. It's becoming, it's also unbecoming, right? And it's so normal to look back on your own past behavior and be like, what was I thinking? I should have known better. It's really important to give yourself grace, allow yourself to make mistakes, and forgive yourself for your past. It is only in being more compassionate to yourself that you can actually be more compassionate to other people, recognizing that we are each on our own unique journeys. And I love this Maya Angelou quote, as she says, when you know better, do better. And even when you're mad at yourself because you knew better, understanding that nothing is permanent, you are always free to make a better choice today will allow you to break free of repeating the same toxic patterns. The fifth thing I did was I practiced mindfulness. Being present in the moment lowers your depression, anxiety, and your stress, and research supports that, and also helps you to be more connected to your body. Becoming more connected to my body and being present in the moment allowed me to tap into my intuition and make better decisions. I also practice gratitude throughout each day and as part of my morning and nightly routine, which helps me to choose how I want to feel in each moment. The sixth thing I did was I guarded my mind. The content that you consume, the things that you choose to look at and listen to, all have an effect on the way that you think, on the way that you feel, and on the way that you act. And so I started to reduce my consumption of the news because they are competing for your eyeballs, even if it means making you angry or feeling fear because they want you to look at the content more. So I think a lot about Romans 12:2 in the Bible, which says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." I understand that not everyone here is a Christian, but I think the idea that your mindset and your thoughts are critical to your transformation is really important. The seventh thing I did is I focused on building my character. I used to care a lot about what other people thought about me, but without character, it's like having a Louis Vuitton bag with no money in it. Think about it. In an ideal world, we would have the bag and the money in the bag, but most of us are walking around with an empty, tattered designer bag, hoping nobody notices, right? So the more I focused on what was inside me, the less I cared about what other people who didn't really matter thought about me. I don't have to convince anyone of who I am because my actions speak for themselves. So like, I don't have to tell people I'm really reliable. I just follow through on my word, you know? And so when you know who you are, nobody can blow you around in the wind. And for me, that really started with making small promises to myself and keeping them, such as like, I'm going to start flossing every night, you know, like little things like that. Because being able to keep my own promises to myself allowed me to trust myself instead of any random person trying to tear me down. The eighth thing I did was I learned how to fill my cup. And this is going to look different for everybody, but nobody can pour from an empty cup. It's really difficult, and I've tried. I don't recommend it. When I prioritized filling my cup, I would protect it. And I set the bar high for how I was willing to be treated. And so now I don't allow myself to just be treated however by whoever, because I protect my cup and who I give my energy to. So now I'm able to pour from a place of overflow instead of feeling drained all the time. The ninth thing that I did was I created a budget and I stuck to it. We are all familiar with budgeting our money, right? Dave Ramsey, who I did his course and I really appreciate all that I've learned through that. He likes to say that a budget is permission to spend, right? We tend to think of budgets as restrictive, but for me, it gave me freedom and permission to spend. And I find that to be true of other areas of my life. So like when I budget my money, I don't feel bad about spending it because I plan to, right? Same thing about food. I don't feel bad about eating macarons because I planned my macros and my calories that day. I don't feel bad about resting because I scheduled rest into my calendar. So budget your time too, and feel good about your rest, because oftentimes what we do is we end up not working, but we're also not resting because we're stressed about not working. So really like be in the present moment, go back to being mindful and own your rest, because we do need rest if you want to become a tree. The 10th thing that I did, I'm sorry if I'm going a little fast here. I just want to make sure I get through all the content in the time. The 10th thing I did was that I looked for ways that I could give. Whether it's your money, your time, or your energy, other people do need you. And so an example of this is in moments when I felt lonely, asking myself, well, why hasn't anybody called me today? I reframed it and I asked myself, when was the last time I called my mom? When was the last time I called my friends? And so I focused more on giving instead of receiving. And the more I did that, the more I found that I was receiving a lot more than I gave. And this last part is definitely the biggest thing. And I know it might be controversial for some, but I sought God. And this is going to look different for everyone because we're all in different places of our journey. And it looks different for me today than it looked 3 years ago. And I hope it will look different 3 years from now. Because whether you believe in God or not, just the act of seeking, the research shows, has a positive effect on your life, just searching, right? And so searching is going to look different. Like I said, 3 years ago, I did not believe in God. And so maybe some of you can relate to that. But at that time, seeking for me meant asking questions like, why do people believe in this? What do people believe? And even though I'm a Christian now, I hope to never stop seeking. And I ask questions like, who is God and what is his character? How can I remain in alignment with him? So it's a lifelong process of becoming and seeking. And I hope that everyone sort of takes that in today, because the research shows that faith in a higher power, a personal relationship with God, and other aspects of spirituality lead to healing, transformation, more positive mental health, less risky health behavior, better relationships, and so many positive outcomes. And if you email me later, I'm happy to send you those research articles, because I used to believe that science and faith were incompatible. And maybe someone needs to hear this today, but I'm a psychologist and my husband is a physicist, and we both came to our faith through science. So all of these things on this slide allowed me to choose the kind of life that I wanted to live and become the woman that I aspire to be. It truly was small decisions every day that snowballed into big changes. And you get to decide. Your identity is a story that you tell about who you are, and your story isn't over yet. So thank you for making it this far with me. If there's anything that you would like me to expand on, such as the research that I've alluded to, feel free to contact me through my email or my Instagram page, PsychedXFaith, where I talk about psychology, education, and faith. And I'm truly grateful to have had the opportunity to spoken with you all today, and I look forward to the discussion.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here to be part of a conversation this almost afternoon as we talk about diversity and leadership. So thanks to the Ornament of Grace and Virtue registered charity organization for this invitation. And I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge and commend your founder, Busola, hope I'm pronouncing that correct, whose passion for transforming lives of teenage girls and youth to be who they're created to become on a national and international scale. When I read and heard about this organization, I feel honored today to celebrate with you what is possible as a Black woman leader in today's world through my lived experiences. It all began when I gave my life to the Lord at age 12. Next slide, please. So today, as we reflect on this topic of diversity and leadership, among the many definitions that I've read on diversity, I want to submit one that will frame my presentation. To support this meeting, the meaning of this word, I have some short stories of my lived experiences as a teenager to adulthood to support this topic. I was beaming with pride when I heard Dr. Aggie talked about the work that she has done and her own lived experiences. And I thought, what a stage she has set for me just to talk about my lived experiences. I will not go into research. I will just share stories with you. So as mothers and daughters, and I notice among us, I'm not sure how many male, but it's possible there are fathers here or uncles. I want to declare to each of you that you're created to be leaders to fulfill the purpose in the settings that you have been placed. I'm sorry, with the understanding that each of you is unique and should recognize your individual differences. Today, I want to invite you to focus on a few key values that I believe that if you exercise these values in your interaction with people and your journey, feeling okay in the color of your skin, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of the realities of barriers that we will face in our different contexts, there are benefits we can experience in a diverse setting that will cause us to rise as leaders. With these experiences, we can inspire others to celebrate the authenticity of who we are. Next slide, please. So these are the key values of diversity, some among so many that you will find in the research, And when I tell my stories, I want you to listen carefully to see what could be some of these values that I had experienced as a teenager and even as an adult. Respect, consensus, establish common goals, communication, the use of inclusive and common language, cooperation, working with a team. So with that, these are the lens you're going to use as we move into my storytelling sections. Next slide, please. So here I am at age 18 in 1984. Now I know some of you are doing the math. How old is she now? So I lived with a Mexican-American family of 10 in a small community called Royal City, Washington. The state was Washington for almost a year as an exchange student. In that setting, I was the only Black student in the school, at the high school I attended. What made my experience so rich and meaningful, there were two other, among other things, but there were two other exchange students. One was from Greece and one from Costa Rica, who we bonded together in a way that made it much easier and more meaningful for me to interact with the school community. And when I thought about this experience, I want to highlight something that we did. The host mother of one of these students, that was Damaris, the one from Costa Rica, extreme right, could be your left. I don't know how it looks on your screen. Her mother decided to take all of us on this road trip around through Washington State, and we actually took a ferry over to British Columbia in Canada, Victoria. Of course, I had no idea at 18 that I would have been in Canada today. So in preparing for that trip, we had to, we put on a fundraising event. So we had to cook foods that represented our own countries. And we had to give talks about our own country. I thought I knew my country, but I actually went to the library at age 18 to do some research on Jamaica. That's where I'm from, right? And that experience, just the preparation of that, coordinating together that event, and we entertained the group. So I did I remember I did a folk song or something, and it was such a exciting time from that experience. I really appreciated my own country. I appreciated who I was at the time as a Jamaican 18-year-old girl. And it was really transforming. So we worked towards the common good, spent time on the road. I think it was over a week, and it was just life-changing. So among my peers, the next slide, if you look at this picture, I am there somewhere in the background. If you look, for me, it's on the left. Maybe for you, it's on the right. I am at the back. If you notice, among this class of graduates, 1984, I obviously, because I shared that, the only Black student. And the opportunities that I experienced among this group of students were life-changing. I was open to those opportunities that came along my journey. I participated in a few sports, one mainly basketball. Never played that game in my life when I was in Jamaica. But I learned that sport, and I was a member of the school team. So there's an experience I had that I'll never forget. We went to another school as a team to compete. And I remember dribbling the ball down to the basket. And people were screaming and calling my name, Sonia, Sonia, and clapping, and some were laughing. And I thought, wow, my goodness, they are just cheering me on. And then I scored. Guess what? I scored in my team's basket. Oh my God, what an error. How could I make such an error? I just laughed about it. I was a little embarrassed, but you know what? I could have given up. I didn't. They actually kept me on the team. So it was a big joke, a running joke in the school that I scored in our own basket, and of course we lost that point. But the lesson that I learned there, really, I was so comfortable in my skin that I could actually laugh at myself. And I was embarrassed, but I could have given up. I kept going. I worked harder in terms of our training. And regardless of the background of these students, my peers, I was able to successfully finish my final year in that setting. I had another experience, and perhaps this one, your child yourself could have experienced this then and now. It was 1984, and I usually take the school bus to school. I remember this morning, a morning, I went on the bus, and I wanted to sit beside a child. I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl. My daughter said, Mom, don't say boy or girl if you don't remember. We had a conversation before my presentation. And my daughter, who's almost going on to being 30, I hope she's not listening. So I attempted to sit beside this student, this child, and I was shunned because I was Black. I had an ugly, awful feeling way down in my gut. I'll never forget it. And suddenly it was so clear to me how marginalized I was as a Black girl. And although that experience was sad and painful, my host family, the Ortegas, they gave me a safe place to share about that experience. And my big sister, she was hopping mad. I don't remember the end result of that. But the fact that I was given the space to talk about how I was feeling helped me to keep going. So that if you reflect on those values on the third slide, I'm sure some things are resonated in your minds. So I want to share with you a little about my host family, the Ortegas. Next slide. Who have they are very much a part of my life. In the end of this experience, I made lasting relationships, especially with this family. I visited them twice in my adult years, and the last time I saw them was summer 2019, and there was a family reunion. Mom and Dad, they had no idea that I was coming, so it was like a shock and great celebration. So despite our cultures, the differences in our cultures, we were bonded by the memory of growing up and the love that we shared and still share. Living with this family, I went to weddings. It was all about Spanish dance and Spanish way of doing things and food. And I even remember I was You know, when I was at home, grandpa would call and he only spoke Spanish, and I was forced to answer the phone. And what was great about that, I could have refused to do that, but you know, I took the risk and I practiced some of my Spanish that I learned in Jamaica, which is mandatory to learn in high school from first to third form. So that was a great experience for me. And another thing that this family, I did, living with this family, that they would get up early in the morning, say 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and go on the farm. And I got up and went with them. I didn't have to. They earned money. I didn't have to, as this being part of this family and as an exchange student, but I did because I wanted to feel part, like I'm part of that family. I wanted to walk beside them. I wanted them to know that, you know what, I am Black, you're Mexican, well, Mexican background, mom and dad, they grew up there. You're Americans, but you know, we're family. So that was, I found very fulfilling. Now, on to the next slide. In terms of my learning journey, it continues. And so moving to Canada was a huge change for myself and my family. But looking back, you know, God has a way to strategize in our lives. Even in preparing for this presentation, I realized that my experiences that I had as a teenager, when I was a student exchange, when I was in Washington State, prepared me for being in Canada. And so coming to Canada, I spent only 1 year in Barrie, Ontario, and I moved to Nunavut 2009 as an educator. Through that journey, I became the first Black superintendent in the Department of Education in Nunavut, Canada. There, in that position, I worked beside school leaders, other educators, community leaders, elders, and I had an experience. I had many, but this one, I was invited to sing at a church. I love singing. And at church, English was not their first language. But the fact that I was invited, that was the community telling me that I was accepted. They opened the door for me and I could have said no, but I went and I had a great time. Oftentimes, when we're placed in diverse settings, being open to being part of the setting with people of different perspectives is key to enriching one's life and affirming one's uniqueness. I believe this among so many more stories of interaction that I have or have had and still having with Inuit, the Inuit people, that's where I work here in Nunavut, have caused me to strive among a cohort of students, and Felicia is one of them, where I did my doctoral studies. It was an international cohort, and there were students there we were Canadians, but they lived in different places, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, in Korea, in Spain, in Cambodia, in different parts of Canada, Nova Scotia, BC, Ontario. I was exposed to that setting. And as a learner, I had to listen to the different perspective respectfully. I had to work in teams. And that experience that I had, I have no doubt that it prepared me to be where I'm at right now as one of the assistant deputy ministers here in Nunavut, as the only first and only Black woman who have had that position. So in closing, looking at my final slide, one would wonder, what am I saying here? What's going on here? One of the greatest honor that anyone in my setting could receive, as whether I'm Black or Canadian, white Canadian, but as a Black woman, I'm celebrating that now as we look at what we're talking about today. Being accepted by elders in this setting is the highest honor. And this picture really captures that diversity that we're talking about, that uniqueness we're talking about, where I went up to these two women I went to a community, Arctic Bay to be exact, and we went to a function. I was there among the team of government officials. And I remember going up to these two women and I just whispered, may I take a picture with you both? Because I was just taken aback with their clothing, really. And I kind of sat beside one of them at the edge, and she said, no, sit in the middle. And they both grabbed my hands. And I took this picture. And I'll never forget that feeling of love and acceptance. That's what really made such a difference in, regardless of the color of my skin. I took the risk to ask for that photograph, and out of it, I was able to capture a picture that's, say, more than 1,000 words of what it means to accept yourself, be okay in your skin, how unique you are, despite of the challenges that you find yourself in, or challenges that come at you in our setting. And so it's really how we celebrate living in diverse setting, regardless of these challenges that we face, that matters. We need to stay focused. Dr. Aggie talked about that, on those values that are in our lives, who we are. And we need to celebrate those uniqueness and recognize our individual differences and even those of others as we continue on this journey that we're called to walk. So as you reflect on some of just these stories that I have shared with you from my teenage years to adult years, I really hope that you feel inspired to walk your walk, to encourage the youth and the teenagers to walk their walk, reflecting on some of these key values as they do that. Let us all celebrate our uniqueness. Let us open ourselves to opportunities when they come our way, not to say no to our kids when they want to do things, or even to ourselves as adults. Let's take the risk in interacting with different people of different backgrounds, and let's remain true to ourselves as we open ourselves to the journey that God has called us on. I look forward to the rest of the conversations that will continue today. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation.
We'll watch a little clip, and we'll have some questions at the end. And the way this will go is that you watch this little clip, make sure you are paying attention. There will be 3 questions. 3 questions, the answers, you will be allowed a minute for each question, and you can type up your answers in the chat box there, and there will be something for the winner. So make sure you're paying close attention to this, all right? So you can take home something precious.
Danny, look at yourself. Did you not get any sleep?
Honey. Danny.
What? Why are you yelling?
Were you playing on your computer again?
Mom, how many times do I have to tell you? I'm not playing, I'm editing my short film.
When are you gonna start thinking about getting a real job?
What do you mean? I want to be a director. That is a real job.
Danny, your dream is just a hobby. You just start thinking practically.
Sweetie, do you think we're being too harsh on her?
Harsh. No. We care about our daughter. This is clearly not the right path for her. It's foolish for a girl to think she can go in this field. Why do you think you only see men on film credits?
Everything okay, Danny? Why do you care? I'm your mother. Of course I care. Tell me what's wrong.
You want to know what's wrong? What's wrong is the fact that Dad is being sexist and you're not doing anything to stop him. It's 2017, Mom. Who says that women can't do the same thing that men can do? Oh, and the reason why there's barely any females in the credits of film is because of parents like you. Parents who don't encourage their daughters to pursue their passions. You are so close-minded that you don't see the potential that women have in their fields. Fields like film work, politics, business, or any of that. You're a woman! You know what we're capable of. So why not follow our dreams?
Honey, I'm so sorry. I wish I had your strength and courage to speak up. I want you to be happy and show the world that females can do anything men can do. We are going to talk to Dad. No one is going to stop you from doing what you love and what you're good at.
So the questions will come up shortly. All right, so the first question, what profession does Danny want to enter? You have the chat box available here. Please enter your answers. I have a minute. I see the answers coming through. We will pick from the first person who answers the correct answer. Keep them coming. Perfect. All right. So we'll move on to the second question. Oh yes, so the correct answer was director. I see some people have filmmaking. We have mainly directors, yeah. So the correct answer was director. And the second question, what was Danny working on her laptop? What was she doing before she came to sit with her family for breakfast? All right. So we'll have the correct answer. Not everyone has typed in their answer, I don't think. All right, so let's see the correct answer. Short film, that's what she was working on before she joined her family. And the last question, why does Danny's father not want her to become a director? Why does he not want his daughter to become a director? What does he think? Does he think they don't make enough money? Does he think it is a male-dominated field? Does he think schooling is really expensive for this field? Or does he think it's because being a director is a hobby? What's the answer? All right, I see. Majority of the poll has B, some says B and C. You're allowed to choose only one answer. Perfect. So let's have the answer revealed. All right. So those of you who picked B is correct. Somewhere on the fence choosing B and C. All right. So we will at the end take a look at this chat and provide someone with a beautiful gift.
Mind me coming in from the under 17, if we can just give attention to them before we adults start. Isabel, I was with under 17 for some time, and Isabel just made a very good point that made the day for the essence of our meeting this morning. So if I can call Isabel.
Hi.
Very much. So just give us your 2 sentences of what it is for you today. Thank you.
Okay. So what I really liked was that from one of the presentators, how they said they were talking about I think it was Mrs. Dr. Abby, how she was just talking about women boosting up your confidence, and that's really good because back in the day, women were not allowed to vote. Women were not allowed to do certain stuff and certain things, and nowadays they're still trying to fix it. And nowadays, women are now just gaining their confidence. Now women can bring home money. Now women can do stuff.
That is absolutely beautiful. Isabel, you still there?
I guess that's a technical issue.
That's all.
Okay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's amazing. That ties in beautifully, as you pointed out, Dr. Aki. That's exact, although it's not exactly her words, but that is so beautiful because yes, there was a time that a woman is just like a leaf, right? She was just there going to and fro, but now women can vote, women can be in professions that was only predominated by men before. That is amazing. That is amazing, Isabel. Isabel is a little girl. She's turning 10. Isabel is turning 10. That's beautiful, Isabel, that you can make those deductions from the presentations that you have heard today. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that was from your group. Does anyone else want to speak from your group? Mrs. Kolade?
No, let's move on, please. Thank you.
All right. All right. So Miss Lorraine, if you're able to just give us a brief summary of what happened in your group.
Sure, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that our group had really great discussions. The participation was wonderful, and a lot of really great insights from our participants. So thank you all again. There were so many things that were said. I have a couple of pages of notes, but I'll try to distill it down into some of the big ideas. But one of our participants, and it was echoed by several others, the importance to not place so much emphasis on the credentials that we may have, but it is more important in terms of how we apply our new learning and our knowledge throughout our life. So it's not all about the credentials, but it's how we apply the knowledge that we've learned. We talked about what does it mean to be not only comfortable in our own skin, but what does it mean to aspire to be the woman of our dreams. Many people talked about that balance, the fact that we wear many different hats as women, and the importance of trying to create that balance to become more well-rounded, the importance of inspiring to do more and be more, and the role that growing in mind, body, and spirit and wisdom has in that journey. We talked about becoming women that are resilient as well in this day and age. We also talked about the importance of role models, the fact that in this day of the internet, we are being able to see more role models like Dr. Aggie and Dr. Osborne that we can learn from. We also talked about the importance of being models and of telling our stories to not only our community, but to our daughters and our children as well. That it's so important to not forget the people that are closest in our inner circle in terms of lifting them up and being transparent and telling our stories. We also talked about, had interesting conversations about what it means to be comfortable in our own skin. Many people talked about the importance of God and their spirituality in terms of forming their identity, but also the acknowledgement that sometimes we are very comfortable, but there may be times in our life where we struggle with that a little bit more, and the importance of seeking outside help to lift us up to continue that journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. I know we have 3 minutes, so I won't take your time. We had a very interesting, good afternoon, everyone again. Interesting age 18 to 25 group with Mojisola, Lucia, Amanda, Priye, and Tosin Dosum. And in our discussion is really that this is a great way to connect as women in terms of our roles in leadership and our roles in our communities and our respective endeavors. But essentially, this is a big thank you to Olga for bringing us together, but we want to be able to connect more than just once a year so that we can continue to inspire ourselves as women of power. But I just wanted to also quickly say that education, as Tosin mentioned, is a pathway to transformational change and growth, and we all have that same shared experience. Even from our speakers today, education was a key transformation to their growth and leadership roles that they play in their respective careers. So thank you, Olga, for bringing us together. We want to connect more even after this event. Thank you so much again. Bye-bye.
All right, so I will also then call on Mrs. Judith. I believe Mrs. Judith is not here. Oh, right here.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so in my group, I had Susan, I had Judith Ojo, Ayodeji Kotu, Dr. Laoye, Princess, Mrs. Shuyabo, and Tayo. And the main gist of our discussion, or the main points of what we took away from it, was that even when you have faced, you face rejections, or you face situations, some discriminatory situations for whatever reason, your gender, your color, your culture, even your accent. One of the ladies in the group shared her personal experience of when she was actually told to her face that she couldn't speak. She was making a contribution. She couldn't speak. She was, because of her accent. So one running theme that we identified was even when you have faced such situations where you're told that you're not good enough, you have to be able to always come back, and we kind of tied it in with the strategies that Dr. Aggie identified in her presentation of being able to say that, to go back, apply those strategies, draw upon them and go back and encourage yourself to pick up from that experience and move ahead and be better for it and be able to stand firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Judith Olumodosi. Now I would open up the floor. You can unmute yourself if you have any question for Dr. Sonia Osborne or Dr. Adi Aggie.
We still have Mrs. We have Dr. Me to give us a debrief, though. Dr. Abayomi, please, can we have your debrief?
Okay, thank you so much. It was a very engaging conversation, very active, and we had a lot. And I think that Dr. Otoide covered most of what we talk about. And I just want to just add a little bit more things that really jumped out. And one big one is, as women, we have to leave a legacy of impact. And most of us said that moving forward is to make sure that we are good role models to the next generation, and we're listening more, we're being mindful of who we are, and being patient with people, especially when we confront barriers with diversity. And Dr. Abby was in our group as well, and she talked about being more secured in ourselves, that it's key. And I think it was Miss Pelamo, I'm not sure if I'm saying the name properly, from Nigeria, talking about being focused and, you know, having a purpose, a life-driven purpose, and standing and still and being focused on our dream. Someone said we have to put more trust in the system, in the process, and not just always doubting ourselves, but to believe that we can achieve what we have set out to achieve for ourselves. And we round it up with encouraging each other to work hard and continue to persevere in whatever situation we are. And again, like I said, I think Dr. Otoide wrapped up most of the things that we talk about as well. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right. We'll call on Wally, our technical personnel there, to play a video, a short clip for us. And then we'll go into our fundraising to talk about what the cause and why we are here today, what our campaign today is about. So if you can play that video for us, thank you.
Sorry, I can't hear anything. Is it me? Everyone else is not hearing as well.
There is no volume.
No sound.
What is it?
Yes.
as we can see, menstrual poverty is a serious global issue. It is a very serious global issue. In fact, in 2021, the BMC Women's Health published that this lack of access to menstrual products, education, and hygiene facilities affects about 500 million people worldwide. Even right in our backyards in the United States, there is an estimate of about 16.9 million people who are menstruating and are living in poverty. Okay, so imagine if this is in the United States, which is a developed country, how much more in nations or a country like Nigeria. And that is why we're bringing this to you today. Think about it. I would like you to come with me. Put yourself in this position for a second. Just for a second. There are women here. You've been a girl before. You've been an adolescent before. You've been a teenager before. Think about when you just started having your period. There was already so much around having your period, which is already a biological, normal process, but there is the pain, there is the fear of not even knowing what it is, and now to be impoverished on top of all of that, right? So this means the young girl who is facing menstrual poverty, this means that she will not be able to purchase menstrual products that she might need. She might have to resort to rags. Some people resort to using papers, tissues, right? Some people will have to go to dump grounds and get ink, newspapers, and use that. Think about how unhygienic that is. So this poor feminine hygiene, right, will now in turn lead to an array of medical issues, including fungal infections, reproductive issues, and most commonly UTI. And we don't want this for this child, for our girls. We don't want this for ourselves. And so we don't want this for another girl, right? Secondly, education for the girl is affected because living in menstrual poverty means that sometimes you might not go to school. You might have to choose between having to look for something to put as, to protect yourself from bleeding all by yourself, or going to school where you will now be stigmatized, or you'll have people making fun of you and the bullying. So in many cases, they cannot go to school, they cannot work, or otherwise participate in simple daily life activities. So why for this? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of soiling themselves. They're afraid of the stigma. They are afraid of the bullying. Again, without education, the girl's career is at stake. Without education, the girl falls into low income, low social economic status, right? Because now your career is affected and we know how that goes. So as your education is affected, your mental health is also at stake. The girl's mental health is at stake. So this is a good cause. This is a reason why we are here today and asking that you extend your arm to donate to this good cause. By doing so, what can we do? How is this helping? The video said it before. What's happening here? The girl can have access to information. The girl can have access to menstrual pads. We are aiming at looking at ones that can be reused, because we understand that also, when you come from an impoverished state, the mind is also affected, where a girl is thinking, okay, well, should I use this as I use this, I'll have to dispose of it. And it's also seen as a waste. But if we're able to get them reusable pads where they can use and wash it and have it used, that is a sustainable way for them to have this going on, where they can constantly be using it and be stable in that state. The ability to receive a positive support, their ability to be in an environment where they feel safe. Because if we are able to help them and provide them with hygienic products for them to keep themselves in a hygienic state, for products for them to protect themselves during their menstrual cycle, what then happens here? It gives the girl confidence, a confidence that she didn't have before. Now she wants to go to school. Now she wants to do more. Now she wants to become more than just a leaf. Now she wants to go out and learn other people's story. Now she's confidence to in her own skin, to want to mingle with other people. This is what we want for ourselves. This is what we want for our children. This is what we're hoping to achieve for the children in Nigeria as well. So please help us with your donation. There are ways here on the screen that says how you can make your payments. You can do an email transfer. You can and the contact for the email transfer will be contact@ogav.org. You can pay by checks. So there are so many different ways that you can help us. You can pay by check. You can do a PayPal. The PayPal information is right there. Direct deposits are accepted through BMO. If you want to help us and you're in Nigeria and you're saying, how can I help? Well, the GT Bank and the information, the sort code is available as well. So there is nothing standing in your way. This is a good cause. We're all women and we know how it can be if you're having your period. Talk less about the pain. You're having the pain already, and you now have to deal with a state where you cannot protect yourself, where you are living in an impoverished state. Please extend your arm to this good cause. It will be very beneficial. And also, I am happy to let you know, that now OGAV is a Canadian charitable organization. So for those of us in North America and Canada, you know what that means. That means that you can receive a receipt that will give you a tax break. We have a limit here though. If you're donating $50 or more, we can provide you with a receipt. Someone will say, well, if I donate less, that means I don't get a receipt. Unfortunately, yes. Why? Because we have to also think about administrative costs. Okay, so give generously, extend your arm. It's a blessing to give, and you receive in that same fold or in many more folds. God bless each and every one of you. Clip here. It's a spoken word by Anisa Nandula, and then Dr. Abayomi. Please, you can go ahead after that to give us the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Bias is a wall. Every word is a brick. Saliva is cement hardening the way that we think about gender or a group of people. A wall that separates us from the fact that we are all equal. An empowered girl is a hurricane that can paint the world in sunsets. Bias is a wall that tries to stop her, but her hurricane isn't done yet. An empowered girl can lead the world into change, and she can guide us into a place that's new. This is a poem to you. Let's break the bias. Bias is a wall that justifies someone laying their hands on their partner. When a woman wears bruises around her neck like perfume, it doesn't start with a fist. It starts with an idea that we hold or assume. Ideas like women don't deserve to be in a presidential seat, but when a baby is born, a woman is the first leader that they meet. Or a woman shouldn't get the job simply because of a name on a resume. Or talking over a little girl because you don't see value in what she has to say. Or that women of color are aggressive. When I think we're just strong. And it is our strength that has the power to transform a scream into a song. An empowered girl is a lit matchstick that can burn into a fire. We need to knock down this wall so she can climb onto the rubble and stand higher. Let's break the bias. We can break the bias by knocking it down brick by brick. We can start by diversifying the friends that we pick. We can become conscious of our bias. Conscious of the way that we treat people because of their age, education, or gender. It is through being conscious that a timber heart can become tender. We can remember that being biased doesn't make you a bad person.
You can knock down a wall and turn it into stairs. It is through having the courage to confront your prejudice that you can show the world that you care. The future is calling on you to shape it. Will you be there? Let's break the bias.
And with that, we segue to the closing, and we've come to the end of our event for today. And I really want to thank everyone on behalf of OGAF, and thank you all for joining us today. We want to especially thank our presenters, Sonia and Abby. Thank you for taking the time just to be here to talk to us. We're taking away a lot of insights from your presentations. We also want to thank all our volunteers behind the scene, people that have made this event possible through their hard work. Thank you very much. Special thank to Wally, our technical person. You won't get to see him, but he's the power behind our event to make sure it happens. So thank you so much, Wally. We appreciate you. And of course, all the trustees that have worked so hard throughout the year to continue to support this vision. We thank you a lot. And for all of you from all over the world that have come to join us, thank you for spending this precious time with us, for sharing your insight, all our facilitators, all our donors, everyone that's done one or two things to make this possible. Thank you so much. Of course, you can continue to connect with OGAF. You can join, connect with OGAF through Twitter or Instagram, as well as the website, where you can get up-to-date information about current events and about upcoming events. And if you really want to know more about OGAF, the website is the right place to go, where you can get all the information about the organization. And of course, you're always welcome to volunteer at any of our events. Once again, thank you so much. We have now come to the end of our event. We wish you all a very productive rest of the day. Enjoy your day, and we look forward to seeing you again some other time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Presence and everyone that is here. Hopefully we'll connect very soon, and we'll get across to you. You're very welcome. Thank you.